Hey there, what's up, party people and magic makers? Destiny here on this magical Monday. Did you grow up? Um, Maybe your parents said this, or maybe you heard it from an adult when you were a child, where someone told you to like prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. Or maybe they just told you to expect the worst case scenario because somehow that would allow you to kind of be prepared for things to come. And, like I know in the Boy Scout, it's like the be prepared stuff, right? And so you're always trying to circumvent all of the bad things that might happen in order to make sure you have all of the materials and the things necessary. But then you also don't want that stuff to happen. Uh, and so, like, it becomes this thing, this weird setup of like, well, I'm preparing for all of the worst case scenarios so that if they happen, I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. But at the same time, I want to hope that none of this happens so that I don't need any of this stuff. That's all well and good for the Boy Scouts and when you need to have like the materials and the whatnots that you need, but that actually doesn't work in our brains. And here's why: preparing for the worst and wanting the best case scenario cannot exist in the same place. And so your brain, which is super, super powerful and can get a lot of stuff done and can really put things in motion, doesn't know which one you actually want to concentrate on. It'll just take the very first thing you tell it to do. That's what it's going to concentrate on and that's what it's going to do, right? So if you're preparing for the worst, your brain's like, okay, I got this. Here are all of the worst things that can happen, right? So if I'm out camping, here's all of the bad stuff that can happen. Well, then you've got to now switch that brain, which is kind of going off on a tangent and is very focused on all the bad things, like, oh, but I don't want that to happen, right? I want only the good stuff to happen. But do we ever take the time to replace all of the worst case scenario situations in our brain with the good case scenarios? No, we just say, here's all of the bad things, but I want the good things. I don't want the bad things. I only want the good things. The thing with our brain is, though, it doesn't understand the word don't. It doesn't understand the word not. So when you're telling it, I don't want the bad things to happen, it doesn't hear the not. So you're actually telling it, I do want the bad things to happen, right? Which then plays into this cycle of like, oh, well, I'm so glad that I was prepared. I'm so glad that I took the time to get all of this stuff because look at what happened, right? Now, I'm not saying go blindly into things, but what I am saying is if you're going to be one of those people that have the planning for the worst case scenario, but only wanting the good stuff to happen, you got to actually pause and allow your brain to switch from all of the worst case scenarios and all of the bad stuff that can come up. Actually switch over to, here are all of the great things. This is what I want to occur. Okay? And actually visualize and walk through it just like it was so easy for it to come up on the bad side. So what would the best case scenario look like? We got to train our brains to knowing this because they cannot actually exist at the same time. And when you attempt to make it exist at the same time, your brain's like, no, you give me the first thing, that's what I'm focused on. Your brain is very much like a toddler, like maybe 2 to 6 years old, where you got to give it one clear instruction at a time and it'll do it. But when you start going, oh, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, your brain is just going to be like, I'm done. And it throws like a tantrum, which creates our overwhelm, right? And this, and this, and this, and this creates our overwhelm and it spikes our anxiety because now we're like, holy crap, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? How am I going to fix this? What about this? And what about this? And then because your brain is already running at the worst case scenario, because we didn't stop it there and transition over to actually visualizing the best case scenario, guess what? Other stuff happens. Dog gets sick, kids get sick, somebody's, like on their deathbed, somebody gets to put in the hospital, stuff, just random stuff that the worst case scenario brain actually didn't think of starts happening because we didn't do the complete switch over. And again, they cannot exist at the same time. right? So we got to be very conscious, especially for those of us who are taught prepare for the worst, hope for the best, always expect the worst, right? For those of us that were taught this, we've got to take extra time and care in making sure that our transition from the worst case scenario to the hoping for the best scenario is actually transitioned and complete by visualizing everything in the best case scenario just as easily as it came up for the worst case scenario, right? So whatever it is that you're working on, whatever project, whatever thing, whatever's happening in your house, and you want the best case scenario, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Are you going to be happy about getting this? Are you going to be sulky about getting this? Is this going to be a solution for more than just you? Is this going to be a solution for people in your house, for people that you work with? What is the solution going to be? What does that look like? But we got to do that full transition over. Because as long as we're stuck with a what's the worst case that could happen, blah, 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 blah. Oh man, I don't know about you, but our brains, mine included, can think of that stuff right quick. Right quick. And it's not always pretty. Does it help me get prepared for whatever it is I'm going into? Sure, yes. But once you're prepared one time, get a freaking checklist. You don't have to think of that stuff anymore. Just get whatever's on your checklist to keep yourself trucking along, right? You don't have to keep reliving that worst case scenario over and over and over again, right? And so then now that transition on what would it look like to have this beautiful, wonderful, hoping for the best case scenario? What does that look like for you, right? Maybe add a couple things to your checklist if that helps. But now that's the thing you can concentrate on. That's what you can focus on. That's what your brain and your mind, the most powerful instrument that we have, can focus on and move you forward doing that, right? Because I'll be honest, I've been talking to a lot of business owners lately, especially because they're interested in my energy clearings, and they are talking about how, they got into business to make money, but they didn't think it was going to be this hard. It's because somebody told them it was going to be hard. Tracing that back with them to hear what they have to say about like growing up with parents who always thought money was going to be hard to make, growing up with grandparents who are like, work hard for your money. And now that they are and they realize they don't have to, that they can have a business and make money and it can be easy, their minds are like, oh my gosh, seriously? Yes. Yes, seriously. They're coming to me for the overwhelm and the anxiety because they were taught about this prepare for the worst, hope for the best, but they didn't make that freaking transition. And so the worst keeps happening to them. And when the worst keeps happening to you, it's overwhelming. And quite frankly, it's freaking exhausting. Just exhausting. And so now they're waiting. They're waiting for another worst to happen, which triggers and spikes their anxiety. Like, that's not fun. That is not fun at all, right? And we need to knock that off. It's not fun. So make sure you do the transition. Make sure the very first time you're like, all right, I'm all for preparing for the worst. Like, I get it. I understand that's ingrained in us. That can be cleared, and if it's ingrained in you, cool. But don't dip and back and forward into it over and over again. Prepare for the worst one time, create your checklist, move on. You don't have to continue doing that over and over again. You really don't, right? Stop the madness. Stop the anxiety, stop the overwhelm, stop all of this in advance because that will free you up to live the life that you were meant to live. That you are meant to be on this earth to live the thing you're meant to do. That is so important. So very important. And we need more of us out there doing that. One, to give permission and to show other people that it can be done. But two, it's just so much nicer and gentler on us. And we deserve that. We really, really do. All right? So take a look. If you've got that prepared for the worst, hoping for the best brain, implement this, right? And get yourself out of that because you don't need to stay in that. You really, really don't. And that'll help you with the overwhelm. That'll help you with the anxiety and taking care of that. All right? All right, everybody. Until the next time. Peace.